What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take. MLB First Look. I'm your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And we've got a massive 13-game slate on a Friday. This slate, pretty deep so far, just looking at the pitching, not necessarily loaded with the top talent, but definitely some viable options and some interesting matchups. We do have one stud ace, but he's got a tough matchup. Again, pitching seems somewhat deep. I think you can argue for some of these players. Maybe not a ton of the cheap seats, but still guys that you can consider. Unlike the slates recently, I don't know if the most expensive pitcher, Jacob deGrom, is going to be the highest owned. We've been seeing a trend of these 12K pitchers. Yesterday was Garrett Cole, who was like 40% owned at 12K. Today, I don't know because of the matchup. Jacob deGrom is by far the most expensive at 11.3. He's at home, but he is against the Braves, a team that is tough to strike out and tough to just contain in general. Very, very good offense. You do have Lance Lynn on the road in Chicago against the White Sox, who do strike out a ton, though they have been pesky. We've got Ryu, but against the Yankees. You do have Jose Barrios hosting Detroit, which will probably be your cash game, SP1. Jack Flaherty. The Rockies aren't striking out a ton right now, but Flaherty's just been nasty. You got Greinke against the Angels. Angels have been struggling. There's a couple interesting ones. Erod against San Diego. I think looking at this from a cash game perspective, Jose Barrios kind of makes sense. At 10K, we know we like Barrios at home. The Tigers have just been a team that we've been able to attack with pitching. So I think that makes sense. As far as SP2s, I want to come down to Velasquez as my first stop, 7,800. Coming off of a decent start against San Diego. He was cruising. He eventually did give him 3 earned, which kind of hurt him a little bit, but ended up getting to 15, which at 7.2 wasn't terrible. A little more expensive, but the matchup is against Miami. So ideally, you could go up to him. If you couldn't reach him, maybe we can discuss Desclafani, though I don't like the matchup for him. So I think you try to see what you can do with like a Barrios Velasquez. It's really not that bad. 17.8 as far as total salary for pitching. So that's the combo you want to go to. In tournaments, we can certainly look at the Erods, the Flahertys. But Jacob deGrom is actually one of the more interesting ones to me. If we're going to get him at lower ownership, I know it's Atlanta, but he has pitched well against Atlanta before. And over deGrom's career, he's pitched better at home. I don't know if it's mattered so much. This year, he's actually averaged more fantasy points on the road. But in general, deGrom's strikeout rate, everything, has been better at home. The Mets themselves have been playing better at home. So in tournaments, I do like the idea of deGrom. It will make your build with Velasquez a little more difficult for tournaments, but we do have some guys you can maybe take a chance on. I don't hate Peter Lambert against the Cardinals. Cardinals is a team that I'm not really afraid to attack right now. And at 4,500, you don't need a ton. And he's a guy that I think most people just believe is terrible, but I don't think he's as bad as Coors, as it starts at Coors, led you to believe. So he did have one terrible road start against Houston, give up 2 home runs, 9 earned. That's Houston, and they were in the midst of a hot streak. Against Cincinnati, got an 11. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Against Washington, got a 16. So you see what I'm saying? Like, he's able to give you something decent at 4,500. So in tournaments, maybe is all I'm saying. I think we have to take a look at Justice Sheffield's minor league numbers. He's expected to be recalled here from Double A. Toronto, they're back in the AL. They're going to get the DH back. And before that, they were kind of hot. So I'm not super excited about this one. Thornton is interesting. The only issue here, of course, is there is going to be a lot of lefties for Seattle. They did just face Seattle, did not go so well at home. 3 earned, 1 home run. Only put up at 8 because the strikeouts weren't there. And Seattle hasn't been striking out as much with some of the younger guys up. Mitch Keller's somewhat interesting. Coming off a terrible start against the Cubs. Before that, it was okay against Detroit, which, like, come on, you want a little better. But okay against the Angels, even though they were in the midst of a little slump. But you can say there's options. I didn't say they were pretty options. I didn't say they were great options, but there's options. Zach Plesac, who I don't think is very good, but gets Kansas City at home in Cleveland. So I don't know exactly how we're gonna try to get to ground, but I think I do want to try that. It may put me onto Lambert, which I don't feel great about, but maybe there'll be some value offensively to where we can still try to jam in Velasquez, because I do think Velasquez will be crazy popular, but maybe DeGrom will be a little bit less owned to kind of balance that out on a 13-game slate anyway. As far as offenses go, the Twins certainly stand out against Soto. Twins lead the league in home runs. Soto hasn't given up a ton of those, but he's not pitching a ton. It's going to be a bullpen game for the most part for Detroit. Detroit's bullpen is just not good. I know tell that to Houston, who they just managed to shut down for a series, but I do like Minnesota's chances in that one. I think Houston is in another. Speaking of Houston, I know they've just been really cold. I don't know if it was just a Detroit thing or what the deal is. They kind of hit the snooze button, but Jose Suarez has been pretty bad, and he's been pretty home run prone. Home run and 4 earned against the White Sox in his last start. In just 4 innings, a home run and 4 earned against the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have struggled against lefties in just 3 innings. Cincinnati, he went 5 innings and gave up 3 home runs. So I do think this could be. I know Houston seemed really cold and they kind of embarrassed themselves in that series offensively, but this might be a decent time to hop on. The problem, of course, is their pricing. If they're going to be, asked for their prices. But I do know that their ownership has been really low. I don't know if that changes because if people are going like Barrios, Velasquez, they'll have a little bit more money to work with. But they certainly do stand out on this particular day. If you're not interested in Sheffield, I wasn't, he's only had I think 1 start this year, and I wasn't overly impressed with him. If you're not on the Sheffield train, Toronto, I do think is worth taking a look at. They didn't do well against Maeda yesterday, but I think them being back in the AL helps. Seattle's bullpen's terrible, so I think they're in play. I think Merrill Kelly's terrible, but somehow he manages to go out there and not get shellacked. He was giving up a ton of home runs before his last outing against San Francisco, but it was San Francisco. You can see 2 home runs against Colorado. That was in Coors. 1 against Philly. That was in Arizona. 2 against Miami, and that was in Miami. 3 the game before that against Baltimore. So he was just getting bombed. The problem is Milwaukee has just been awful. They had that little spurt against the Nationals where you thought they were going to do really well, and they've just been awful. So the Brewers, let's look at their pricing. The Brewers look like they're in a good spot on paper. They're at home, but they have sucked lately. Their prices are jacked back up, kind of. Grandal 4.3, Yelich 5.9, Hioris 5.5. So they did. Oh, Hioris been playing well, but they did kind of jack these dudes' prices up. Well, Moose has been hot. There you go. You got 24 and he pinch hit that day. There you go, Moosey. So yeah, the Brewers team maybe to keep an eye on, right? And you have a ton of these pitchers that are decent that that I'm not really going to use. We can go into detail on that tomorrow on the Y stream on the. I will be writing the tournament article tomorrow over at ystake.com. But the the question is, if you're not going to use these guys, which ones are you willing to attack? And that's something we definitely will dig in on tomorrow. But right out the gate, there's a few offenses that kind of stand out. And there's some pitching that stands out. So a lot of ways to go on a 13-game slate. These slates are typically bigger. I try to just not to overthink things, kind of let other people make the mistakes and just play the guys and the teams and the pitchers that I believe are in optimal or good situations. Of course, on larger slates like this, I always try to play in smaller fields. I'm not saying you don't play donkey. Go ahead and play the donkey. You never know. It could be your day. But your main contest should be a little smaller in size as far as entrance, like less entrance. So you're competing less against less people. It'll kind of, shrink the slate down a little bit because not everything will probably be covered. You'll probably have, more chances to get that first place prize when you're not competing against every single possibility like you are on the donkey. So, doing dirties on the reg. That's going to do it for the slate breakdown portion. Before we do the top three, I'm going to remind everybody, if you haven't checked us out at wisestake.com, make sure you get over there, come see what it is we do, see how we help you become a better DFS player. We are a DFS community as well as a DFS premium content provider. You can try a day pass for $2.50 to get in to our MLB content access for one full day. Only thing you don't get access to is our Slack chat. Slack chat is for monthly members or higher, which I highly recommend after you try the day pass and see the Wise Take Nation is where you need to be. We still got the NFL season pass promo running. That will run until September 1st, and then the price will go up. The full season price come opening kickoff for the regular season will be $149.99. Right now you can get it for $99.99 if you use promo code Early Owl NFL 2019. It's one word, no spaces. Early Owl NFL 2019 at checkout underneath the have a coupon section, and you'll get it for $99.99 full season of NFL and Slack chat. Let's go. All right, so my top three pitchers are going to be DeGrom, Berrios, and Velasquez. Pretty basic, nothing fancy. DeGrom, Berrios, Velasquez. As far as sticks go, we're going to go Houston. I'm going to throw them in this mix. We're going to go Houston, Minnesota. Right. Houston, Minnesota, and Milwaukee. Let's fucking go. Fucking go. Long watch. Boom, boom, boom. Mike Moustakas, where you at, bro? You've been hot, man. Mike Moosey cock. Let's see. I'm going with Nelly Cruz against the lefty, even though it's winning against a lefty. He's just been hot. Earth is his planet. Earth is Nelson Cruz's planet. Massive upside. And then we're going to go with a Houston player. We're going to go with Gurriel. Gurriel, Moustakas, Nelson Cruz. Let's go. And that's going to do it. Please, guys, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. This way you're notified whenever we put out our content. We do DFS stuff Monday through Friday, slates, and we also have a podcast once a week. Every Sunday night we do it live. If you're interested in the podcast once a week, where we talk about sports, a little bit of gambling, a little bit of everything, really. Just talk about a bunch of whatever the fuck we feel like. But check it out if you're going to have a good time. Otherwise, just watch the DFS stuff. Either way, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do put out, any type of content, because it is fire content. For myself, the entire Wise Tech Nation, as always, good luck.
Yes.